Welcome back to lesson 1 in what not to do. The video cut out and I do apologize for that. My phone was literally at full storage. And you know why my phone was at full storage? It's because I had nearly up to 1 terabyte of dating and relationships advice, mostly from TikTok, some bits from Instagram, some bits from YouTube, but 99% of it from TikTok, of just people saying that your romantic interest is a narcissist, or your romantic interest is an avoidant, or your romantic interest is borderline personality disorder, etc. They're not even outright saying that they are that. They are basing their entire video on that premise, with all the logic, with all the analytical reasoning behind as to why they are that way and how you should respond. And I'm telling you, I've got a terabyte of that shit on my phone. I had to delete half of it just so I could start filming this again. And I'm going to put it onto a USB for like future reference, because some bits and pieces, they hold value. Some bits and pieces really just don't. And when you absorb all that content and bullshit, you are going to stay locked into that bullshit. So I highly recommend, if you are on TikTok or social media, Snapchat's got the same problem, use your algorithm to your advantage and start looking at the life you would kind of like. Start looking at boyfriend, girlfriend content and look at the happy couples. Ignore all the stupid comments that say, I hate my life right now, and I miss my boyfriend, we just broke up, she blocked me. Ignore all those stupid comments. If you can relate to those comments, don't relate to those comments, because it's relating and identifying with those comments and those feelings. I understand they're very real, but we must refuse to identify with them and immerse ourselves in them, because we can become trapped in them. So yeah, you can use social media to your advantage. It's a useful tool if you know how to use it, but it's a massive trap that gets you sucked in, sucks your soul in, diverts your attention to what really matters. And what really matters is you being crystal clear. This is what I'm actually kind of trying to do here with you. Just give you a little bit more clarity on what not to do. Give you a little bit more clarity on what to do. And you'll find that the experts often try to lean you towards what I'm trying to tell you here. That you should not do this stupid stuff, you should do more of this good stuff. Although they'll have completely different ways about going about it, and they'll use their own weird ass terminology. Right, well, now that we've just covered that, I'm going to get back to number 4 here of not resorting to violence, verbal abuse, or hostile behavior. Unfortunately, in countries like Australia, this is actually much more a profound way of life for people, statistically, than we would like it to be. And this does still happen in religious communities, including Jehovah's Witness groups, where I used to be a part of. I've got relatives I've never personally met in my family tree, and they experience violence and things like this for 20 years, and it's just normal. They have no idea. Until 20 years later down the track, it's just like, damn, I don't know if I want to put up with that anymore. And by that point, man, you got to do some serious changing if you are the one who's been inflicting that. If you are on the receiving end of that, sure, just take a step back. You're under no obligation to preserve the relationship, but if you would like the relationship to be preserved, I highly recommend looking at your contribution as to why you invited all this violence in. It's a little bit different with childhood. I don't really want to cover the subject of childhood, but just know that in your own childhood, you will carry out the types of behaviors that you've seen your parents carry out. Attitudes your parents have carried out. Beliefs your parents have carried out. And even if you sort of objectively oppose your own parents' ways of life, you may unknowingly, like I did, want a partner who has all these traits that you actually kind of oppose. This is why the whole avoidant attachment thing comes into place in the first place, is because you yourself may have been rejected or neglected as a child, or even BPD, same story, much worse. It's because the parental childhood upbringing dynamic was a mess. And then when they go out looking into the world for a partner, they're actually looking for a parent figure. And I did this myself, and I had no idea I was doing this. And even if you point it out, it might not really make sense, and you might not really see it. And the reason you don't see it is because it's this cloudy, watery lens that you really don't see. The only way you might even see it is if somehow someone can get through to you on the other side and spark your heart. And then you're like, holy shit, I could see through that wall. I could see through that wall. I've had that happen, maybe once. And that's usually when someone gets down to your level and they understand you. At least they try to. But then the wall closes up and they go back to being an asshole. But I did this with one of my former romantic interests. She was a very lovely lass. But over time, I had the problem of throwing my insecurities onto her. I had mother wounds. I was comparing, this is how you kind of know that you're looking for a parental figure as a partner. I was kind of comparing my lass, my romantic interest, to my mother. I was comparing my wife to my mother. You're like this, you're like that. Don't yell at me. You're such a horrible, kind of monster. Leave me alone. Even though technically she might not have really been doing that at all, I had perceived her in those ways. And I was projecting her. And if she wasn't being like that, then I would try to insist that she is until one day she becomes that. Because I kept pushing for that. And then even if she is like that, I would still kind of be justified in saying, no, see, you are my mother. Treating me horribly, because my mother actually did kind of treat me quite horribly when I was growing up, to be honest. The dynamic is different now that when I was in my mid-20s from that point onward. But before then, it wasn't the most beautiful picture. And I think the same is true for my own mother growing up. She had this sort of chaotic childhood with her own parents. It's great now. It's always been kind of great, but there's always these kind of misfits that happen. And even as a grandchild, you see the misfits happen that still take place in their own adulthood. It's crazy. And you've probably seen this too. So just be careful. Your own comparing your partner to your parents, looking for that trauma, you say you don't want the trauma, but you are actually kind of looking for it. Because that's all you know. Anything outside of that, you kind of don't know. It's this unexplored territory. It's kind of like being rich. It's like the rich are rich because they're smart in the sense that they know what they're looking at. It's clear. They don't have a dirty mind necessarily. They think about money. But for poor people, their whole focus is on the poorness, the unwealth, the unlove, the lack, the longing, the wishing upon a star but never actually doing anything about it. And they sit like that, not necessarily because they want to, but because it's all they kind of know. And they're in friend groups who reinforce this. And you cannot necessarily, dare I say, become something that you condemn. And just every once in a while, I'm going to check on the camera to make sure it's working. Yes, I learnt that saying from a dude, one of my own mentors once. You cannot become something that you condemn, because then you would condemn yourself. So for rich people, right? Everyone loves the idea of having lots of money, but when you actually see someone who has a lot of money and a lot of power, you kind of condemn that person. Maybe not you personally, but there is a lot of condemnation. Rich people are evil. Rich people are scumbags. Rich millionaires are like the bar low these days. It's never been easy to become a millionaire. I'm not joking. It's the easiest thing ever. I'm a millionaire. Millionaires are just normal people. I'm a millionaire. People love giving me money. You've got to tell yourself things like that. People love giving you money. Doesn't matter if you're a woman or a dude. People love giving you money. People love seeing you as very wealthy. But here's the problem. Even if you are wealthy, you might have these sort of antagonistic ideas that may harbor in your heart. Like, everyone's just trying to use me, or you're afraid to lose the money kind of thing. And with this whole money attitude, it's the same with your relationships. When you're actually in a healthy, stable, boring relationship, you might self-sabotage. You might invoke fear within yourself and start painting pictures that never really happen, such as fear of cheating, a very dominant one. Fear of, not being good enough, not being worthy. You just self-sabotage is really the main word there. You shoot yourself in the foot. All right, so let's move on to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 5 here. Do not retaliate. Say an eye for an eye, or fight back fire with fire. Now, I do apologize if you hear a lot of birds. There's just tons of birds where I live. Now, in the law of the antithesis, which I like to describe it as, which basically means that if there's light, there's dark. If there's hot, there's cold. Both exist on a binary or other alternative type of thing. They just cannot exist without the other, right? Sometimes you can fight fire with fire. Sometimes you can give an eye for an eye. But this is consequential. Kind of like karma. If you condemn your romantic interest, you are condemning yourself for various reasons, if you believe in the law of assumption. If you see that other people are different aspects of you in your mental self, different aspects of your mental realm on display, revealing different things about you. If you condemn a thing about a person, you're actually condemning a thing about yourself. For example, maybe someone makes a squinty face like this at you when you share some idea, in the sense that they're very displeased with you. Ugh. The way you said that sounded really, really stupid. And I've had my own dad say that to me the other day when we were out for the Greek store. And, it wasn't the most amazing feeling. And I kind of just let it go. I didn't really want to think about it, to be honest. I didn't really want to keep that in mind. But at the glance, it did sting a little bit, because I could see, what if you can use this to your advantage. You can look at other people's mistakes, and instead of condemning those mistakes, you can see the mistakes within yourself that you need to address. Because what if it was you doing the same thing? You're doing the same thing with a squinty face. Now you can see how that feels, and you can stop doing that. There's a part, I think I may have written down here somewhere. I'm not sure. No, I don't quite see it. But basically the word here I'm also looking for is escalate. Escalation. Please do not escalate your situation, even if your situation is violent. I've had some violent episodes in my own family dynamic before, mainly with my dad, siblings. Never a pretty picture, okay? And the last time I had a scuffle was maybe about 3 years ago, actually. It's actually surprisingly a long time ago now. And thankfully, the connection between me and my father has actually grown significantly. We are much more bonded than ever before, despite the violent episode that we have. It was a spontaneous, violent episode that just came out of nowhere like that. I chose not to escalate the situation. I could have initiated an AVO, which is like an apprehended violence order, a court order, to prevent contact, to prevent physical communication, etc. I could have made that escalation because I've had that escalation happen to me. But I chose not to do that. And you see so much advertising by the courts and the police and the jurisdictions promoting this bullshit for relationships, dividing families. But I'm telling you, do not do that. Because what you're doing, you're returning fire with fire. You are nuking your relationship. You are obliterating your chances at ever rekindling things. Should you have a heart of incredible platinum and gold, will you ever be able to find some type of forgiveness in that dynamic? I'm telling you, do not do that, because you are going to escalate the situation. But that's your choice. If you want to escalate the situation, it's your choice. It is your choice. I understand if some people do that. I do get it. I do understand. Some people are absolutely violent. But you have to look past into someone's heart. Did that person really mean to be violent? Is that really in their heart? Why aren't you looking at your contribution as to what led up to that escalation, that violent episode? And that's what I did. I saw that there was a lot of anger inside of me. I saw that there was a lot of distress inside of me. A lot of it was, I wouldn't say being caused by my father necessarily, but it was already there in my heart from other environmental factors. But I let those environmental factors get to me. And that would enrage me a lot more. I would become a lot more irritable to stimulus. And then if I hear a comment that I didn't like, I would start raising my voice and getting angry and getting loud. And then my father just trips me over and hurts me, And it was very upsetting at the time. But now when I look back at it, I reflect so much on my contribution. I didn't really do a lot. But the fire that was already in me, the raising of the voice, it led to the escalation. My contribution is what helped create this environment. And if I was to decide to nuke my father, or it doesn't even matter for my father, it could be anyone. If I decided to escalate the situation, e.g. AVO, I would not be where I am today. I would not have a great relationship with my father, or even my own romantic interest for that matter. She treated me very horribly for a long time. But then I need to reflect on my contributions as to why this was happening between us in the first place. Why was she treating me very horribly? Now, she's calling me. She's coming to see me. She goes out of her way to say hello to me. Would she ever really be doing that if I said nasty things about her to her? If I continued to think that she was an avoidant, a narcissist? I didn't respect myself at the time. I was a rescuer. I was a bit like a caregiver. I was not being a lover. So, do not escalate. Do not retaliate. It is in your best interest to refrain from escalating, because self-restraint is highly attractive. And by the way, if you're ever interested in mind control, which I personally am interested in mind control, the best way to mind control someone else is to first be in control of your own mind. And I'm not joking. Self-control of the mind, your own mind, is self-control over other people's minds. This is going to be a little bit like a chain reaction thing that happens. It's going to ricochet back to you. The way you show up sets the stage moving forward. People are going to reciprocate with their feedback towards you. And in systems theory, how you show up, as I said, sets the stage moving forward. Same with manifestation and telepathy. If you're thinking well, healthily, clearly, it's going to have an impact on everyone else around you, and they're going to treat you differently. Let's move on to number 6. Do not try to fix your romantic interest. It's this whole avoidant attachment and borderline personality disorder and narcissist bullshit that is kind of putting you in the hot water in the first place. I didn't know what a narcissist was. one of my romantic interests was definitely somewhat a narcissist with her behavior. But inherently, is she really? Is she really borderline? At a surface level glance, you can look at someone and say, okay, that is narcissistic behavior. That is BPD, maybe. That is maybe potentially avoidant. But if you go to the root of that and say, oh yeah, that for sure is that, you are shooting yourself in the foot. Because just like with the violent episodes, do they really mean to do that? Are they really that? How would you feel if someone made that judgment against you? You've got to be empathetic. You've got to imagine yourself in their shoes. Imagine having to listen to the bullshit that you think about them. You put yourself in their shoes and you can hear your own mind. You swap bodies and you listen to all the things from this mind here. And you listen to all the bullshit that you said to them. Trying to fix someone makes them feel uncomfortable. How do you like it when someone's trying to fix you? Maybe you are kind of thinking to yourself, oh, I'm broken, but you're not really broken, not really. It's only because you think you're broken that you actually behave in a way that is broken. Or because you just don't know any other way and you're currently kind of swimming in this pool that makes you act like this. But when there's nothing really wrong with you and someone tries to, dare I say, number 7, do not lecture, harass, or pressure your partner, it doesn't feel good. It feels horrible. If you lecture them, I don't want to sit there for 5, 10, 15 minutes listening to someone lecture how I should not be, what I should do instead. You know all that health advice? Even on the freaking internet. Come on, we consume thousands of hours of it. Do we really listen to it? I dare say only 1% of people who really absorb that information are really going to do anything about it. No one wants to be lectured to. No one wants to be harassed, especially. No one wants to be pressured. So we're talking about the downing, the disintegration of a relationship, right? By lecturing, you are the cause of the relationship falling down. By harassing, you cause the relationship to disintegrate. By putting unnecessary and uncalled for pressure on the relationship, including asking for the title itself, by the way, in case you're in a situationship, you are creating the disintegration. Trying to fix the relationship, trying to fix something that isn't even broken, seeing it as broken to begin with is a problem in itself. Retaliating when there's nothing to retaliate to, it's only because you see that there's something to retaliate to, when there's nothing at all to retaliate to. I don't care if you're a woman, you've got your hormone fluctuations, it doesn't matter. You can choose how you respond. Same with a man. It doesn't matter if your woman, your female is nagging at you and saying all this sort of stuff. What matters is how you respond. If you respond with violence, verbal abuse, hostile behavior, even just irritation, that's a big problem. Even if you're trying to tiptoe, walk on eggshells, walk on glass, that act in itself is the feeling of being scared of losing the relationship. And that in itself puts pressure on your partner. They can feel that tension, and it's not a very nice tension. Dare I say you'd probably want some sexual tension. You would definitely, I'm going to write that down, sexual tension. We definitely want some sexual tension in the relationship, and, how you do sexual tension is you just go with the flow. You go up and down, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. How can you do that if you're doing all this bullshit, villainizing them, seeing them in a certain way that doesn't even allow for the rhythm of the 2 steps forward, 1 step back to occur? Lecturing, harass, pressuring. Sometimes there's a place for things like this. Sometimes there's a place, but you have to know exactly when and why. For example, if you're going to dwell on your suffering, maybe, in real life, you might lose your kid or something. I don't know. And it's okay to feel that for a moment. There's a time, the Bible says there's a time to cry and there's a time to be happy. So you're allowed to be in your suffering sometimes. But the problem is so many people identify with it. And that is the biggest problem, because if you are identifying with it, you are that. You are what you eat. And if you eat this, you get more of it. We're going to call it for the end of lesson 1 now. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this kind of makes sense. I hope I don't come across as being an asshole, because I just want to get this over and done with, to be honest, because I am just going off the top of my head here. Literally just going off the top of my head.